Hey, dog. So, completely just as conversational, casual as you
Okay.
want. Happy to be here with you. Glad to have you over.
appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you reached out to our organization a while ago, and you were one of the first people that's really reached out to us, and I really appreciate that. Just your willingness to share your story and support our mission, it means a lot to us.
It's my pleasure. I found that sharing my story is not only helpful to others, it's therapeutic to me.
Sure, absolutely.
It helps me more than anyone.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get my story out there too. That's what it's
Yeah.
all about. So tell us as much as you want a little bit
Okay.
about yourself.
I'll just start talking.
Sure.
And I'm 47 years old, and I can, as long as I can remember, even as a little kid, I was a little adult.
Yeah.
I like to tell people, I was 45 years old when I was 12, and I was always a ball of worry. I just constantly worrying, just anxiety. But I kept it all inside of me, and that kind of manifested itself into just a quiet little boy. What I think people perceive me as shy, really shy, really quiet, and because of that, they thought I was really smart.
Yeah. Were your friends and family aware of how anxious you were as a kid?
I think they knew I was shy.
Yeah.
And they always felt like, well, he'll just come out of his shell eventually.
Sure.
And I did. But it wasn't really because I was shy. It's because I had so much going on in my mind. I kept it really quiet. I worried about my parents constantly.
Yeah.
I worried about my grades constantly, even though I was just an average student. I never made straight A's, just B's and C's.
Yep. As hard as I tried, B's. Yep.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
And but I grew up. It was very well behaved. I kind of did what you were supposed to do in life. You grow up. You save money. You study hard. You go to college. You get a job. You get married. Oh, I got married and I got a job. I actually did for a living what I went to college for. I got a degree in forestry and went into park and recreation management for my career, and I really couldn't complain about my life at all. I started working, worked for the same place for over 20 years, City of Dallas, and I loved my job. I considered one of the best jobs, that you can have. Just working in parks and dealing with park design and tree management and that sort of thing. But I would say about age 40, I started having these panic attacks, these anxiety attacks. And I even kept that a secret for a long time. And it would happen on my way to work, just driving.
That's tough.
And I never said a word. And then it started getting to the point where it was unavoidable. People started to notice. I wasn't coming home early in the evenings like I normally would. And unfortunately, and to keep hiding it, I started self-medicating. I just started taking pills, doing whatever, just to make myself, just hiding it.
Sure, make it easier.
Medicating it.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I felt really guilty about that, and I admitted that to my wife. And she was very supportive and said, "You just get help." And I still wasn't ready to admit much more than that, that I really needed help. So to make that part of the story short, she did all she could do, and said, if you can't, get help, there's not much I can do for you. Our marriage ended. It ended amicably. And we moved on, and my anxiety was getting worse. My panic attacks were getting worse. I started getting to the point where, maybe I do really have a problem that I need to address with a doctor. I did start going to see a doctor.
Do you remember what it was that kind of pushed you over that point? Because that's a very That's a gray area to feel.
Yeah.
And to understand, was there like a moment where you're like, okay, you got to get on track now?
Really, honestly, I think it was starting to impact my job.
Yeah. Okay.
And people at work were, I was coming into work late or not showing up because I was having this panic attack and I didn't want anyone to know about
Sure.
it. And what would happen is now I'm so open to talk about it. But back then it was like, even still when I'm having episodes,
It's tough.
depression episodes or
man.
whatever, I don't want to have anything to do with anybody.
No.
I want to just, I retreat. And don't
A lot of
talk
men
to
do that
anybody.
though. Just strategically as well.
Yeah.
Like we were told that men are isolate themselves and it's such a terrible thing, but sometimes men just need to sit and process the information.
Well, that was happening to the point where it was impacting my job, and I started to get help, and really, I was getting help. I was still in denial, and I wasn't really open to my doctors, and I got to the point where I attempted to try to kill myself. I attempted suicide. And my sister and my bosses I didn't show up to work and they were worried. And they send a wellness check to the police and they show up and they take me to the hospital. It was at that time my doctor said that's about as depressed as you get.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with, I have two diagnoses at first, and this is from what I found out is pretty normal. They diagnose you first with a major depressive disorder. And I attempted suicide, and my doctor says it's about as depressed as you can get because I want to try electroconvulsive therapy on you. And I'm like, they still do that, huh?
Yeah. A little bit different than they used to.
Yeah, it's
but
very
they
much
still do
very
it, yeah.
different. They put you to sleep, and
Yeah.
it's not as traumatic as physically as they would show on the movies.
Sure.
But
One flew over the cuckoo's nest.
yeah, one flew over the cuckoo's nest, and that's exactly what I thought of
Sure.
when he mentioned that. And he goes, "It's very peaceful now. And they put you to sleep for just a couple minutes, and they induce a seizure in your brain, and you can do 20 to 30 treatments of that." And,
Really?
wasn't allowed to go to work, and the treatments they say they helped. I'm not sure if they did. Apparently, it's a very effective treatment. I felt like the side effects, the memory loss,
Yeah.
the short-term memory loss. It was like living with Alzheimer's.
That's crazy.
And that was very traumatic. That was more traumatic to me than being sick, really. And but it was during that process I told my doctor, I said, I have a problem sleeping, which is very normal. How come after 2 or 3 days of sleeplessness I still have all this energy? And I can ride my bike in 10 miles. And it was at that point he says, we're going to add another diagnosis to you, and we're going to add bipolar. And they decided it was bipolar type 2, which is I get more depression than I do mania.
Okay.
I kind of wish I get more mania. I talk to these guys that have mania, and they're on top of the world. They think they're king of the world.
You're
and
way
they can
down
accomplish
low,
anything.
wishing you were in that spot. Yeah.
But I get more depression, and the depression is debilitating.
Yeah.
And you get to the point where you want to hurt yourself, or there's so much despair. And being I've kind of just realized that I'm not a shy guy. I'm an introvert.
Sure.
I don't mind spending time by myself.
Yeah,
and,
me neither.
And a lot of people will think, well, no wonder you're depressed. You spend all this time by yourself, and that's really quite the opposite. So I consider myself an introvert, but so which is why when I go through, my doctor tells me, we're going to treat you with medicine, which is the primary treatment. That you have a brain disorder, a chemical imbalance, and we need to treat that with medicine. But he also wants you to do various types of therapy. And being an introvert and doing group therapy kind of conflict.
Yeah, it's tough.
And but I started doing these various types of therapy, this groups therapy, music therapy, And I realized talking about it was one of the best things I could do. It's amazing. And listening to these guys talk and hearing them say the exact same things that's going through your mind, you then realize you're not alone.
Sure.
You're not that unique.
We're not. We're really not.
And it made me feel so much better. And so now what I do is I talk about it. It's the best thing you can do to fight this stigma.
Absolutely.
And I was so embarrassed to even mention this to family, to work. I was embarrassed. I had my sister having to take care of me. But now it's almost a badge of honor to talk about it. It's like, I feel so much better talking about it. And people that suffer from the same problems, they want to hear the same thing that you're going through, and it helps them. And so whenever I'm feeling good, I talk about it.
Helps.
And it's very therapeutic to me, but it helps others. And
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of what I like to do nowadays is tell my story, that it's not the end of the world. I'm told I will always have depression. I'll always have bipolar disorder. And it sucks. It really does.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna do what I can to make the best of it.
Sure.
And helping others, helping fight the stigma. It helps normalizes it, and you're not really as screwed up as people think you are.
No, we're not. Everybody else deals with the same shit. It's just not to the same degree, you know?
Yeah.
I like to think that this organization can literally connect to anybody because we're all stuck inside a mind. We're always thinking.
Yeah.
There's no shutting it off, even when you're dreaming.
That's right.
I used to hate my dreams because they were nightmares, and it's just a continuation of life. There's no turning it off.
That's a good point. I dream about this all the time.
Yeah.
And some of them are worse than others.
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, so a lot of your history sounds pretty similar to mine in terms of like panic attacks I've experienced in life. They suck. Oh my God, they're debilitating. The sleeplessness, but I want to ask you a question about the cycle of your depression as well, because my depression in life has always been wake up in the morning and it's a crapshoot kind of thing. And I have some strategies in life that I've tried everything. Like one of my biggest things, I like exercise. They say that exercise is like a 20 milligrams of antidepressant or whatever it is.
That's true.
It's very effective.
It's true.
But I'm wondering how it's like to know that you have a bout of this depression coming on and you're facing it so willingly, and like what is there any kind of a planning or like a system of once you're in it, you know that it's going to be lifted at some point, but like that's just so different than my experience. So I like to hear about
when you're going through this and you're not familiar with what's going on, it was really scary for me. I wanted to end my life.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on. I said, why am I feeling this way? This is horrible. I just want to end it. But now that I know what it is, I have a diagnosis.
You thought that helped you a lot?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And now that I've gone through a bunch of cycles, and my cycles are fairly quick. They don't last as long as some other guys. I go through a couple weeks of depression and a little bit of mania.
That still sucks.
And but it does. But what's so great about knowing about it is that you know what the symptoms are coming on, and then you can take preemptive action to lessen the symptoms or to, like, exercise you mentioned.
Yeah.
I love to ride my bike.
Cool.
And I'll take a long bike ride, and you get a runner's high after a long bike ride, and you start to feel better. You can take preemptive action. It's not going to go away for me it hasn't. But at least I can take certain actions to lessen the symptoms. And I know what's going on in my head instead of rather just wondering, why am I feeling this way? What is this? I know what it is now. Don't get me wrong, I still retreat into my hole.
Yeah.
And
It's comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at least I know what it is, and sometimes if somebody asks, I can verbalize it.
That's good.
I can say, I'm having a rough time, just like I was supposed to meet with you last week. I got sick, and I was physically ill, but I was also having some issues. I was having some depression. And so I can at least say I'm having a hard time. Let me call you next
It's the
week.
best thing for
Yeah.
you is just being
Yeah.
able to,
Yeah.
especially in my experience, knowing the situations
Yeah.
that you're going to be able to follow through on and what's going to put you in that kind of an uneasy spot, just to be prepared and think
Yeah.
outside of yourself a little bit.
And for me, when I say that, it's not a cry for help.
Sure.
It's just
It's the reality.
It's information.
Yes, absolutely.
This is what's going on. Let me get through it,
Yes.
and I'll be right back with you. Some guys will want, some people, that is a cry for help.
Mhm.
I'm not one who cries out for help.
But are you willing to ask for that help? Like, I find it interesting that you say you've been so able to verbalize your story.
Yeah.
I've had a very hard time verbalizing my story in life. And I find that this project has helped me somewhat. But about 2 weeks ago, I was trying to write a speech and just go through chronologically my story. And it is tough.
It didn't come easy.
Yeah.
But I when you go through a process of getting sick, not knowing what's wrong, you think you're going crazy, you lose your marriage, you lose your career, just because of all of it, and you go into the hospital and you go through this treatment that is very embarrassing, electroconvulsive therapy, shock treatment, you're getting hospitalized in a psychiatric ward.
Mm-hmm.
You lose pretty much all, it's like, you know what, I have nothing else to lose. I might as well just talk about it.
Fair.
And you get to the point where, and you then start to feel better. And to me, it took losing everything to start to be able to talk about it. And hopefully, I can talk to guys and they don't have to get to that point.
Sure.
They can start talking about it before they lose everything.
Yeah. Do you find that it's since you've started to, it's a muscle that you're starting to build on and you're getting better at?
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
You gotta flex it. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta exercise it.
Yep.
Yeah. And to me, it's just part of normal life now.
Mm-hmm.
My neighbors know what's going on. You still have to maintain a level of privacy,
Absolutely.
but I don't feel ashamed anymore.
I appreciate that.
And,
I appreciate you talking to us about it.
Yeah.
Really.
And so it's just, and now it's therapeutic to me. I've got to talk about it. Isn't that weird?
It is. It comes really full circle.
Yeah.
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 I want to talk a little bit about the experiences of like the different forms of therapy as well, because I find that pretty interesting. And I know that I've been in group therapy sessions where I think that it as impactful what the other people say. Like, I'll never forget what a lot of other people say in a group therapy session. Just it's burned into my mind.
Yeah.
And they're people with stories way worse than mine, and some a little bit better, and that makes you feel good because you're somewhere on the bell curve of life, kind of thing. But my experience with therapy has been mostly one-on-one talk therapy, and I honestly like a therapist that's kind of like this. It's a conversation of just back and forth, and just someone to soundboard off of, and they stop you and go, well, your perception of reality is a little bit skewed here, Sam. This is what's really going on. What do you think, like, what forms do you find have helped you?
Well, each person I finds therapy, different kinds of therapy beneficial to them. Some people like group therapy better than one-on-one therapy. I thought I'd like one-on-one therapy. Well, first, I just insisted on psychiatry. I just wanted the doctor to give me my medicine, and of course, they're always adjusting your medicine, and that's not therapy. That's just medical care.
Yeah.
And then I resisted therapy because of my personality. I just said, I don't need to talk about my feelings. And then I actually started doing it, and I found that group therapy is better than one-on-one therapy for me, because when you're in group therapy, you can say as much or as little as you want.
Absolutely.
You can just listen to other guys talk, and you hear lots of things that they're going through that you can relate to. Or you can just spill your guts, and everyone else is just listening. And I found that doing both, just depending on the day, is very therapeutic for me. But what I found very interesting for me is music therapy. and there's different kinds of music therapy.
I've never experienced any of that.
But,
Like, what are you
you
talking
know,
about?
a lot
Explain
of,
that a little bit more.
you know, when people think of music therapy, they think of Alzheimer's. That people,
Sure.
you know, singing, doing actual singing to help with memory and.
So you're listening to music?
So what we're doing is listening, and we listen to all types of genres. We analyze the lyrics and talk about what the songwriter or the singer is feeling and how it impacts your feelings and how you can have different interpretations of the lyrics. And for me, you learn so much about yourself, the way you think, your style of thinking, your cycles, and I never really appreciated music. I never listened to the words when I just never. It never was a cerebral thing for me.
Okay.
But now it's become, you can actually listen to the words and listen to the music and the beats along with it, and you can actually start having different feelings. And to me, it just helps me learn about myself and how I deal with different emotions. And I've just come to enjoy it.
Do you have an example of like a song that's like?
Gosh,
I don't want to
know.
put you on the spot. You feel free to say no, screw it. But
You know, I don't have a very specific example I can come up with now, but there are lots of songs about mental health.
Yeah.
There are lots of them. Lots of songs about bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
That are just aren't very, it's not very overt.
It's not over the head, but
Yeah.
it's there. Yeah, yeah.
There's lots of songs about drug abuse and about. I'm trying to think of the song that is. I'm not sick. I'm just bent, or I'm not. Can't remember what it's called.
I'm not sick, but I'm not well. That's an old
something.
song.
Yeah. But it talks about mental illness and how you're not that crazy. You know, I'm just a little. I'm not sick. I'm just a little unwell.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
and those, listening to those lyrics and the songs, you relate to it and you feel it better.
So I have a
Yeah,
question
yeah,
about that as well, though. Do you find that it's the message of the song that you're interpreting, or is it just the fact that you're able to get out of your own headspace and kind of into somebody else's and
both.
analytical?
But it depends on the song.
Yeah.
Like the song I just mentioned. I think it was Matchbox 20 that sings that song.
Okay.
And,
That's not what I was thinking.
and you know, I'm not well. I'm not sick. I'm just a little unwell. I can't remember the exact
Get the gist,
lyrics,
don't worry.
but sometimes the lyrics make you feel better. You relate to it, and others you kind of do a little psychoanalysis on yourself, and
That's fun.
and it's just they have different emotions attached to different songs.
Sure.
And some of them just make you happy,
Yep.
and you just kind of lose yourself in it. And some you just get really deep into the lyrics.
So do you have like an iPod or an iPhone that you have some of these songs ready to go now?
No.
No? That's a big tip for you. Get
I
on
have
that,
an
dude.
iPhone, but I don't. For some reason, I haven't got to that point.
Yeah.
I don't have a list of songs. Some people have a music list.
Mm-hmm. I have a happy
yeah,
playlist. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sad. Put it on shuffle. See if it'll
Yeah.
turn around.
I haven't gotten to the point where I've gotten that high tech yet.
Yeah.
I'm not a techie.
Okay.
And but now I've gotten to the point where in the middle of the night, if I'm suffering from insomnia, I'll put on Pandora and do
Something to do.
the yoga music. And they have different stations with different types of music that you can put on. But that was one type of therapy that I thought, that's weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Like I know
Yeah,
music
yeah.
therapy sounds so original and such like a basic
Yeah.
human concept, but then
Yeah.
it's like, how is that done? Am I playing? Am I listening? I bet all forms are probably very effective, but that's very interesting.
Yeah. And so every 3 months I go see my psychiatrist. We look at our medicines and readjust our medicines. I take very strong medicines, Seroquel, and I'm just like any other person with a mental illness. once you start feeling better, you don't want to take your medicine.
Yeah.
And that's the cycle that a lot of people go through, is you start feeling better and you stop taking your medicines. And I'm no different. And then you start getting sick again. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge.
There was a time probably, I've been on medication since I was probably 10 kind of thing, and I got off it for most of high school. I was doing great, and then crashed again.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to my psychiatrist about a year and a half ago and saying, I'd really like to get off this, but if I do, I know I'm going to be here in 6 months. And he says, we can do that though. If you want to get off it, that's totally cool. And I said, doesn't that sound kind of stupid to you? Like, isn't it probably better that I just stay here? He's like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. All right, I'm going to say we need to continue to do this. But medication is such an interesting topic. Like, I remember my sister, when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, used to be like, oh, you're not okay right now. You need to go take a chill pill. Go take your pills. And I used to get pissed. I was like, you know that actually does something for me, all this stuff. But I went to summer camp for a long time, and there was a sense of stigma and like shame of going up to get my medication before each meal, of like something the rest of the kids aren't doing and I have to go do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Medication has been a love-hate situation in my life, and I find, especially because my experiences, not trying to put my experiences onto you at all, but my friends with bipolar disorder have had a very tough time dealing with the medication front, whether it's the power of the medications, the mix of the medications, the side effects as well.
Yeah.
I know the worst part of I've ever had in mental health was the side effects of my medication. It's what put me at the lowest low of my life. But medication is also kind of what gets me through the day at some point.
Well, you're right. It's I take some pretty strong medicine that I feel like weights me down, and I feel like I'm just I'm weighted down, and I just kind of go through the day like a zombie sometimes. And so I've taken it upon myself to adjust my medicines, and that's one of the worst things you can do.
It's dangerous.
And you know, I've also evolved in being truthful to my own doctor.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that.
And several months ago, I finally went to my doctor and I said, "Look, I've got to talk to you about something. I got to talk to you about the voices."
Okay.
And she goes, "Oh, really? Tell me about the voices,
Yeah.
Mr. Hellmann." And I tell her, it's like, it's not like different personalities in my head. It's like my own conscience talking to me, and I start arguing with myself. 'Cause let's say, for example, I lose my keys, and so myself tells me to look for the keys in the kitchen, and they're not there, and I start getting really upset about, why did you tell me to look at, stuff like that. And she goes, well, that's,
Internal dialogue.
She goes, yeah. She goes, okay, so that's not schizophrenia.
Yeah.
I'm going, thank God, because that would have been diagnosed years ago if that's what it was. She goes, that's just psychosis. You're not taking your medicine, Mr. Hellmann, are you?
Gotcha.
And she goes, not only are you going to start taking your meds, she goes, I'm going to, she basically doubled some of them, and that kind of upset me.
Yeah.
But she had to do, do what you have to do, and I start taking my medicines, I start feeling better, and I don't have this psychosis as much. I just find out I get that a lot more when I can't sleep. Because if you can't sleep, that creates all sorts of
That screws with you.
hallucinations in your head, and you think you're hearing voices.
So that's the word. I have sleep in terms of I will not go to sleep. There were times when it gets really bad during like the winter and stuff, when I'm awake till 4 or 5 a.m. the sun's coming up, and I go, I'm now tired, I gotta go to sleep. It screws me up. But I've never had a block of time where I am, sure there are nights where I can't fall asleep, but it's like 2, 3, 4 hours. I can't imagine like 2 days.
Okay, it's horrible. It happened. It's probably one of the worst things that I deal with.
Do you like give up on trying to get to sleep, or is the whole time you're just like, it's the effort of going to sleep? Like, what is that even like?
Sometimes you just sit in bed, and your mind won't stop.
Yeah.
There's just stuff going through your mind. You just wish your mind can relax.
Yep.
And there's the point in time you're just not thinking about anything, and you drift off to sleep. For me, my mind, my thoughts are just, they call it rolling thought patterns. You just keep thinking things over and over again, and you can't stop, and it just, you're too busy to sleep in your own mind.
Honestly, that I have that too.
Yeah.
But one of the best tips I ever got from the doctor was like, when you feel like it's 40 minutes or whatever, get up, do something, get back in bed. Just make a difference, change the situation.
Well, sometimes I do that. Sometimes I get up and I'll just do chores. I'll do laundry.
Yeah.
I said, well, I don't want to do laundry. It's time to go to sleep. Damn. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But when I was traveling up here, I was going on 2 days and no sleep. And I get to my aunt's house up there, and all my cousins are there, and we're having a dinner. And I just sit on the couch. I just got to go to sleep, and I just passed out. But thank God, I felt bad. But
It's the right spot to do it, though. If it's around anybody, yeah.
But I finally fell asleep, and thank God, because if I would have stayed up any longer, I would have. I probably would walk in the streets naked or something.
Does that sleep feel as good as I imagine it to be?
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. Because I can have insomnia for 2 or 3 days in a row with no sleep, and I'll sleep for maybe an hour, and it'll feel like I've slept all night.
Really?
Yeah. But it's not enough. It's still
No.
not enough, but it'll feel like that. Like, thank God I finally at least got a few winks.
Jesus.
And but yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things I struggle with.
Yeah.
And
It's also the hours where you're awake and you're stuck not sleeping when everybody else is sleeping. Like, it's good for us sometimes to have those solo moments and that kind of stuff. But then it's just like, if you need to talk to someone, who the hell is awake at 4 a.m.? Like,
That's right.
what is going on?
That's
I
right.
got to find something to fill time right now.
that's right.
That's tough. That's really tough.
That's a good point. I've never really tried to reach out in the middle of the night to
No?
anybody.
Oh, I've woken people up
Yeah.
and get pissed.
Have you? Well, good
Oh,
for you.
yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
But I'll go out for a walk, but then
That's good.
I'll realize that, you know what, I'm in a condominium community. People realize I'm out walking, and it's like,
Hey, if they're asleep, though, who cares?
yeah, that's right. So, but I've gotten to the point where, nothing is new to me anymore, really.
Do you appreciate that, or is
I
that
do.
kind of sad?
I do. It's because it's if something affects me, if I go through something that I have never gone through before,
Scary as
I'll
hell.
get scared.
Yeah.
I'll get scared.
Absolutely.
And when you get scared, you get paranoid.
Yep.
I mean, in this kind of sickness, you get the paranoia can be really bad. I used to suffer from paranoia really bad because when I didn't know what was going on, what's going to be what's next, and am I going to have to go to the hospital next? I would, going to the hospital was the most traumatic part of my illness. Is checking myself into psychiatric hospital.
Do you think is that the system of the hospital? You think there's like in an ideal world, is there a way to make that hospital situation more easy to enter or something? Like what would have been better?
It was just the not knowing what to expect at the hospital.
Sure.
Because when you go into psychiatric hospital,
You lose everything.
you lose control.
Yep.
You don't. They
They're in
control.
charge.
They're in charge. You can't leave when you want. It's up to them. Whether you're just into a 3 or 4 day psych hold or a 30 or 60 day hospitalization, which I've done both. You just don't know. Am I going to be able to go home next week?
Yeah.
Do they think I'm well enough? And it's almost like a mind game you're playing with the doctors.
Absolutely.
And you get to the point where do I got to fake being well just to get out of the hospital?
Sounds like Catch-22,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
And you hate to do that, but you don't want, when you're sick, you just don't want to be there.
No.
But that's why they give you the medicine, to help calm some of that hysteria or but I own it now.
Yeah.
And if you got to be hospitalized, don't fight
It
it.
saves a lot of lives.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. And I hopefully I will never have to go back to the hospital again.
Sure.
because I know what to expect when these cycles happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my story.
I appreciate that.
It's you know, you can ask me anything you want,
No,
and I'll pretty much answer.
we've been going for about
Yeah.
45 minutes, kind of thing.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad to talk
This is
about
one
it
of the
with
best
you.
conversations I've had in a long time, especially for people who've been watching. They know this is the best one we've had so
Oh,
far.
cool,
So
cool.
just thank you for being so receivable and so. I know we talked about this conversation
Uh-huh.
before, and we're just average.
Well,
we really are.
I just have to say thank you for creating this organization.
You're
You
welcome.
guys do good work.
Thank you.
Don't stop.
I'm
And
not.
just keep doing it.
Appreciate it.
It's important work.
Yeah.
And really the most important thing we can do, people who suffer from whatever mental illness, bipolar or whatever, depression, is to talk about it.
Mhm.
It eliminates the stigma. It normalizes the issues, and guys can just reach out and ask for help if they need it without fear of someone, you know, of being thought of differently.
Yeah, we're our organization. Everyone here, we're always here for you, and anyone out there needs some help.
Yeah.
We're always trying to just help. That's all we try to do.
So I put my story out there. Feel free to put my name and contact information out there. Anyone wants to call me and
Cool.
talk about my story or their
Very cool.
story, I'm there for them.
Awesome. Thanks
All
so
right,
much,
man.
Mike.
All right.
There we go. Take care, folks. Shut it off. That was awesome, Mike.
This is cool.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Like I really love being able to do this.